Hi, good day everyone. Me, Miss Lindsay May Amarabe, together with my group mates Miss Alexa Devero, Miss Anna Marie Fonoliera, Miss Daryl Ann Epis, Miss Elaine Joy Dallas, Miss Ivy Grace Alabata, and Miss Marie Franz Macolbacol will report Chapter 13 and Chapter 14. So let's start off with Chapter 13, Inventory Management. What is an inventory? The term inventory refers to the raw materials used in production as well as the goods produced that are available for sale. So in other terms, an inventory is a stock or store of goods. Firms typically stock hundreds or even thousands of items in inventory, ranging from small things such as pencils, paper clips, screws, nuts, and bolts, to large items such as machines, trucks, construction equipment, and airplanes. Naturally, many of the items a firm carries in inventory relate to the kind of business it engages in. The inventory models described in this chapter relate primarily to what are referred to as independent demand items. That is, items that are ready to be sold or used. Next, the nature and importance of inventories. Inventories are a vital part of business. They are not necessary for operations, but they also contribute to customer satisfaction. So inventory decisions in service organizations can be especially critical. So in fact, in terms of dollars, the inventory of goods held for sale is one of the largest assets of a merchandising business. Retail stores that sell clothing wrestle with decisions about which styles to carry and how much of each to carry, knowing full well that fast-selling items will mean greater profits than having to heavily discount goods that didn't sell. So there are different kinds of inventories, and these include the following: raw materials, work in process or WIP, finished goods, tools and supplies, maintenance and repairs or MRO, and good in transit. Next is functions of inventory. There are 8 functions of inventory. First is to meet anticipated customer demand. So a customer can be a person who walks in off the street to buy a new stereo system, a mechanic who requests a tool at a tool crib, or a manufacturing operation. These inventories are referred to as anticipation stocks because they are held to satisfy expected demand. Next is to smooth production requirements. So firms that experience seasonal patterns in demand often build up inventories during pre-season periods to meet overly high requirements during seasonal periods. These inventories are aptly named seasonal inventories. Companies that process fresh fruits and vegetables deal with seasonal inventories. So do stores that sell greeting cards, skis, snowmobiles, or Christmas wreaths. Next function is to decouple operations. Historically, manufacturing firms have used inventories as buffers between successive operations to maintain continuity of production that would otherwise be disrupted by events such as breakdowns of equipment and accidents that cause a portion of the operation to shut down temporarily. The buffers permit other operations to continue temporarily while the problem is resolved. Similarly, firms have suppliers. Similarly, firms have used buffers of raw materials to insulate production from disruptions in deliveries from suppliers, and finished goods inventory to buffer sales operations from manufacturing disruptions. More recently, companies have taken a closer look at buffer inventories, recognizing the cost and space they require, and realizing that finding and eliminating sources of disruptions can greatly decrease the need for decoupling operations. Inventory buffers are also important in supply chains. Careful analysis can reveal both points where buffers would be most useful and points where they would merely increase cost without adding value. Next function of inventory is to educate the risk of stockouts. So delayed deliveries and unexpected increases in demand increase the risk of shortages. Delays can occur because of weather conditions, supplier stockouts, or deliveries of raw materials, quality problems, and so on. The risk of shortages can be reduced by holding safety stocks, which are stocks in the excess of expected demand to compensate for variabilities in demand and lead time. Next function is to take advantage of order cycles. So to minimize purchasing and inventory costs, a firm often buys in quantities that exceed immediate requirements. This necessitates storing some or all of the purchase amount for later use. Similarly, it is usually economical to produce in large rather than small quantities. Again, the excess output must be stored for later use. Thus, inventory storage enables a firm to buy and produce in economic lot sizes without having to try to match purchases or production with demand requirements in the short run. This results in a periodic orders or order cycles. Next function of inventory is to hedge against price increases. Occasionally, a firm suspects that a substantial price increase is about to occur and purchase larger than normal amounts to beat the increase. Next function is to permit operations. The fact that production operations take a certain amount of time means that there will generally be some work in process inventory. In addition, intermediate stocking of goods leads to pipeline inventories throughout a production distribution system. Little's law can be useful in quantifying pipeline inventory. It states that the average amount of inventory in a system is equal to the product of the average rate at which inventory units leave the system and the average time in a unit is in the system. Thus, if units are in the system for an average of, let's say, 10 days, and the demand rate is 5 units per day, so the average inventory is 50 units, that is 5 units per day, 10 days for 50 units. Last function of inventory is to take advantage of quantity discounts. Suppliers may give discounts on large orders. Next is objective of inventory management. So inventory management has two main concerns. One is the level of customer service, that is to have the right goods in sufficient quantities in the right place at the right time. The other is the cost of ordering and carrying inventories. The overall objective of inventory management is to achieve satisfactory levels of customer service while keeping inventory costs within reasonable bounds. Toward this end, the decision maker tries to achieve a balance in stocking. He or she must make two fundamental decisions: the timing and size of orders, that is, when to order and how much to order. So managers have a number of performance measures they can use to judge the effectiveness of inventory management. The most obvious, of course, is customer satisfaction, which they might measure by the number and quantity of back orders and/or customer complaints. Another useful measure is days of inventory on hand. That is a number that indicates the expected number of days of sales that can be supplied from existing inventory. Here, a balance is desirable. A high number of days might imply excess inventory, while a low number might imply a risk of running out of stock. Next is requirements for effective inventory management. So management has two basic functions concerning inventory. One is to establish a system to keep track of items in inventory, and the other is to make decisions about how much and when to order. So to be effective, management must have the following. Number one, a system to keep track of the inventory on hand and on order. Second, a reliable forecast of demand that includes an indication of possible forecast error. Third, knowledge of lead times and lead time variability. Fourth, reasonable estimates of inventory holding costs, ordering costs, and shortage costs. Fifth and last, a classification system for inventory items. Next is inventory counting systems. So inventory counting systems can be periodic or perpetual. So under a periodic system, a physical count of items in inventory is made at periodic or fixed intervals, example weekly or monthly, in order to decide how much to order of each item. A perpetual inventory system keeps track of removals from inventory on a continuous basis, so the system can provide information on the current level of inventory for each item. So an advantage of a periodic system is that orders for many items occur at the same time, which can result in economies in processing and shipping orders. There are also several disadvantages of periodic reviews. One is a lack of control between reviews. Another is the need to protect against shortages between review periods by carrying extra stock. When, on the other hand, in perpetual inventory system, when the amount on hand reaches a predetermined minimum, a fixed quantity, Q is ordered. An obvious advantage of this system is that the control provided by the continuous monitoring of inventory withdrawals. Another advantage of perpetual inventory system is the fixed order quantity, in which management can determine an optimal order quantity. One disadvantage of this approach is the added cost of record keeping. Moreover, a physical count of inventories must still be performed periodically to verify records because of possible errors, pilferage, spoilage, and other factors that can reduce the effective amount of inventory. Perpetual systems range from very simple to very sophisticated. So a typical grocery product code is illustrated. The zero on the left of the barcode identifies as a grocery item, and the first five numbers 14800 indicate the manufacturer, and the last five numbers 23208 indicate the specific item. Items in small packages such as candy and gum use a 6-digit number. Next is demand forecasts and lead time information. So inventories are used to satisfy demand requirements, so it is essential to have reliable estimates of the amount and timing of demand. Similarly, it is essential to know how long it will take for orders to be delivered. In addition, managers need to know the extent to which demand and lead time might vary. And the greater the potential variability, the greater the need for additional stock to reduce the risk of a shortage between deliveries. Thus, there is a crucial link between forecasting and inventory management. So that's all for my report. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I'm Anna Marie G. Fonaliera, the second reporter, and I will be reporting about inventory costs. Inventory costs are all costs associated with ordering, holding, and managing the inventory or stock of an operation or business. There are four basic costs are associated with inventories, and these are purchase cost, holding or carrying cost, ordering cost, and shortage costs. First, purchase cost. Purchase cost is the amount paid to a vendor or supplier to buy the inventory. It is typically the largest of all inventory costs. Second, holding or carrying costs relate to physically having items in storage. Costs include interest, insurance, taxes in some states, depreciation, obsolescence, deterioration, spoilage, pilferage, breakage, tracking, picking, and warehousing costs, such as heat, light, rent, workers, equipment, and security. They also include opportunity costs associated with having funds that could be used elsewhere tied up in inventory. Note that it is variable portion of this cost that is pertinent. Third is ordering cost or the cost of ordering and receiving inventory. There are the costs that occur with the actual placement of an order. They include determining how much is needed, preparing invoices, inspecting goods upon arrival for quality and quantity, and moving the goods to temporary storage. Ordering costs are generally expressed as a fixed dollar amount per order, regardless of order size. When firms produce its own inventory instead of ordering it from a supplier, machine setup costs, like preparing equipment for the job by adjusting the machine and changing cutting tools, are analogous to ordering costs. That is, they are expressed as a fixed charge per production run, regardless of the size of the run. The fourth one is shortage cost. Result when demand exceeds the supply of inventory on hand. This cost can include the opportunity cost of not making a sale, loss of customer goodwill, late charges, back order cost, and similar cost. Furthermore, if the shortage occurs in an item carried for internal use, for example, to supply an assembly line, The cost of lost production or downtime is considered a shortage cost. Such costs can easily run into hundreds of dollars a minute or more. Shortage costs are sometimes difficult to measure and they may be subjectively estimated. Now let's move on to a classification system. An important aspect of inventory management is that items held in inventory are not of equal importance in terms of dollars invested, profit potential, sales or usage volume, or stockout penalties. For instance, a producer of electrical equipment might have electric generators, coils of wire, and miscellaneous nuts and bolts among the items carried in inventory. It would be unrealistic to devote equal attention to each of these items. Instead, a more reasonable approach would be to allocate control efforts according to the relative importance of various items in inventory. Now let's describe what is ABC approach. ABC approach classifies inventory items according to some measure of importance, usually annual dollar value, like for example dollar value per unit multiplied by annual usage rate, and then allocates control efforts accordingly. Typically, three classes of items are used. A is a very important, B is moderately important, and C is the least important. However, the actual number of categories may vary from organization to organization depending on the extent to which a firm wants to differentiate control efforts. With three classes of items, A items generally account for about 10 to 20% of the number of items in inventory, but about 60 to 70% of an annual dollar value. At the other end of the scale, C items might account for about 50 to 60% of the number of items, but only about 10 to 15% of the dollar value of an inventory. This percentage vary from firm to firm, but in most instances, a relatively small number of items will account for a large share of the value or cost associated with an inventory, and these items should receive a relatively greater share of control efforts. For instance, A items should receive close attention through frequent reviews of amounts on hand and control over withdrawals, where possible to make sure that customer service levels are attained. The C items should receive only loose control or two-bin system or bulk orders, and the B items should have controls that lie between the two extremes. Note that C items are not necessarily unimportant. Incurring a stock out of C items such as the nuts and bolts used to assemble manufactured goods can result in a costly shutdown of an assembly line. However, due to the low annual dollar value of C items, there may not be much additional cost incurred by ordering larger quantities of some items or ordering them a bit earlier. So as you can see in figure 13.1 illustrates the ABC concept. To solve an ABC problem, we have to follow these steps. First step is for each item, multiply annual volume by unit price to get the annual dollar value. Second step, arrange annual dollar value in descending order. Third step, the few, about 10 to 15%, with the highest annual dollar value are A items. The most, about 50%, with the lowest annual dollar value are C items. And those in between, about 35%, are B items. So, for example, A manager has obtained a list of unit cost and estimated annual demands for 10 inventory items and now wants to categorize the items on an ABC basis. Multiplying each item's annual demand by its unit cost yields its annual dollar value. So as we can see in the table, there are 10 items and different numbers of annual demand, unit cost, and annual dollar value. So this time we will apply the 3 steps I have mentioned earlier in ABC concept. So the first step is for each item, multiply annual volume by unit price to get the annual dollar value. So in the first item, we have annual demand of 25. We will multiply in the unit cost, which is the 360 US dollar, is equal to 9,000 US dollar. So it is the same for the rest of the items. Multiplied the annual demand to unit cost. Then after that, we have to add all the annual dollar value, which so add all this annual dollar value. So it give us 75,910 US dollars. So in here, we have to apply the second step, arrange the annual dollar values in descending order. So as we can see in the table, each items are arranged to the highest to lowest, and they classified each items A, B, and C. So note that category A has the fewest number of items but the highest percentage. Cycle counting. It is a physical count of items in inventory. It is another application of ABC concept, is as a guide to cycle counting, which is a physical count of items in inventory. The purpose of cycle counting is to reduce discrepancies between the amounts indicated by inventory records and the actual quantities of inventory on hand. Accuracy is important because inaccurate record can lead to disruptions in operations, poor customer service, and unnecessarily high inventory carrying cost. The counts are conducted more frequently than once a year, which reduces the cost of inaccuracies compared to only doing an annual count by allowing for investigation and correction of the causes of inaccuracies. So we have the key questions concerning cycle counting for management. So these are: first, how much accuracy is needed? Second, when should cycle counting be performed? Third, who should do it? Some companies use certain events to trigger cycle counting, whereas others do it on a periodic or scheduled basis. Events that can trigger a physical count of inventory include an out-of-stock report written on an item indicated by inventory records to be in stock, an inventory report that indicates a low or zero balance of an item, and a specified level of activity, like every 2,000 units sold. Some companies use regular stockroom personnel to do cycle counting during periods of slow activity, while others contract with outside firms to do it on a period basis. The use of an outside firm provides an independent check on inventory and may reduce the risk of problems created by dishonest employees. Still, other firms maintain full-time personnel to do cycle counting. Inventory ordering policies address the two basic issues of inventory management, which are how much to order and when to order. In the following sections, a number of models are described that are used for these issues. Inventory that is intended to meet expected demand is known as cycle stock, while inventory that is held to reduce the probability of experiencing a stock out, example running out of stock due to demand and or lead time variability, is known as safety stock. So the discussion begins with the issue of how much to order. The question of how much to order can be determined by using an economic order quantity, or EOQ model. EOQ models identify the optimal order quantity by minimizing the sum of certain annual costs that vary with order size and order frequency. Three order size models are described here. Number 1, the basic economic order quantity model. Number 2, the economic production quantity model. And number 3, the quantity discount model. So first, we will tackle the basic economic order quantity EOQ model. The basic EOQ model is the simplest of the three models. It is used to identify a fixed order size that will minimize the sum of the annual cost of holding inventory and ordering inventory. The unit purchase price of item and inventory is not generally included in the total cost because the unit cost is unaffected by the order size unless quantity discounts are a factor. If holding costs are specified as a percentage of unit cost, then unit cost is indirectly included in the total cost as a part of holding cost. The basic model involves a number of assumptions, so they are listed in table 13.1. So as you can see, there are 6. So the first one is only one product is involved. Second, annual demand requirements are known. Third, demand is spread evenly throughout the year so that the demand rate is reasonably constant. Fourth, lead time is known and constant. Fifth, each order is received in a single delivery. And sixth, there are no quantity discounts. Inventory ordering and usage occur in cycles. Figure 13.2 illustrates several inventory cycles. A cycle begins with receipt of an order of Q units, which are withdrawn at a constant rate over time. When the quantity on hand is just sufficient to satisfy demand during lead time, an order for Q units is submitted to the supplier because it is assumed that both the usage rate and the lead time do not vary. The order will be received at the precise instant that the inventory on hand falls to zero. Thus, orders are timed to avoid both excess stocks and stockouts. The optimal order quantity reflects a balance between carrying cost and ordering cost. As order size varies, one type of cost will increase while the other decreases. For example, if the order size is relatively small, the average inventory will be low, resulting in a low carrying cost. However, a small order size will necessitate frequent orders, which will drive up annual ordering cost. Conversely, ordering large quantities at infrequent intervals can hold down annual ordering cost, but that would result in higher average inventory levels and therefore increased carrying cost. So in figure 13.4 illustrates the carrying cost, ordering cost, and total cost curve. First, let's discuss the annual carrying cost. Annual carrying cost is computed by multiplying the average amount of inventory on hand by the cost to carry one unit for 1 year, even though any given unit would not necessarily be held for a year. The average inventory is simply half of the order quantity. The amount on hand decreases steadily from Q units to 0 for an average of Q0 over 2 or Q over 2, using the symbol H to represent the average annual carrying cost per unit. The total annual carrying cost is equal to Q over 2H, where Q is order quantity in units and H is holding carrying cost per unit per year. Carrying cost is thus a linear function of Q. Carrying costs increase or decrease in direct proportion to changes in order quantity Q, as figure 13.4a illustrates. On the other hand, annual ordering cost will decrease as order size increases because for a given annual demand, the larger the order size, the fewer the number of orders needed. Next is annual ordering cost. It is a function of the number of orders per year and the ordering cost per order. So the formula for ordering cost is annual ordering cost is equal to D over QS, where D is demand, usually in units per year, and S is ordering cost per order. Because the number of orders per year is D over Q, decreases as Q increases. Annual ordering cost is inversely related to order size, as figure 13.4b illustrates. The total annual cost, or TC, associated with carrying and ordering inventory when Q units are ordered each time is total annual cost, or TC, is equal to annual carrying cost plus annual ordering cost is equal to Q over 2H plus D over QS. So note that D and H must be in the same units, example months or year. In figure 13.c reveals that the total cost curve is U-shaped, like example convex with one minimum, and that it reaches its minimum at the quantity where carrying and ordering costs are equal. An expression for the optimal order quantity is Q0 can be obtained using calculus. The result is the formula is Q0 is equal to square root of 2ds over H. Thus, given annual demand, the ordering cost per order, and the annual carrying cost per unit, one can compute the optimal or economic order quantity. The minimum total cost is then found by substituting the Q0 for Q in formula 13.1. The length of an order cycle, example the time between orders is length of order cycle is equal to Q over D. So for example, a local distributor for a national tire company expects to sell approximately 9,600 steel-belted radial tires of a certain size and treated design next year. Annual carrying cost is $16 per tire, and ordering cost is $75. The distributor operates 288 days a year. And the questions are: what is the EOQ? How many times per year does the store reorder? What is the length of an order cycle? And what is the total annual cost if the EOQ quantity is ordered? So now let's answer the first question. Letter A, what is the EOQ? So we will use the formula Q0 is equal to square root of 2ds over H is equal to square root of 2 times 9,600 times 75 over 16 is equal to 300 tires. Second question, letter B, how many times per year does the store reorder? So, number of orders per year, T over Q is equal to 9,600 tires per year over 300 tires per order is equal to 32 orders. Then letter C, what is the length of an order cycle? So length of order cycle, so Q over D is equal to 300 tires over 9,600 tires per year is equal to 132 seconds of a year, which is 132 seconds times 288 or 9 work days. So letter D, what is the total annual cost if the EOQ quantity is ordered? So TC or total annual cost is equal to carrying cost plus ordering cost is equal to Q over 2 times H plus D over Q times S is equal to 300 over 2 times 16 plus 9,600 over 300 times 75 is equal to 2,400 US dollar plus 2,400 US dollar is equal to 4,800 US dollar. So that is our total annual cost. So we have another example. Building Manufacturing Assemble Security Systems, if it purchases 3,600 high-definition security cameras a year at 180 US dollars each. Ordering costs are 50 US dollar and annual carrying costs are 20% of the purchase price. Compute the optimal quantity and the total annual cost of ordering and carrying the inventory. So the D is equal to 3,600 security cameras per year, S is equal to 50 US dollar, and H is 0.20 times 180 is equal to 36 US dollar. So the formula we will use is Q0 is equal to square root of 2ds over H is equal to square root of 2 times 3,600 times 50 over 36 is equal to 100 security cameras. Then we have to compute the total annual cost. So TC or total annual cost is equal to carrying cost plus ordering cost is equal to Q0 over 2 H plus D over Q0 times S is equal to 100 over 2 times 36 plus 3,600 over 100 times 50 is equal to 1,800 US dollar plus 1,800 US dollar is equal to 3,600 US dollar. That is the total of total annual costs. So holding and ordering cost and annual demand are typically estimated values rather than values that can be precisely determined, say from accounting records. Holding costs are sometimes designated by management rather than computed. Consequently, the EOQ should be regarded as an approximate quantity rather than an exact quantity. So to the question, how good is this approximate EOQ in terms of minimizing cost? The answer is that EOQ is fairly robust. The total cost curve is relatively flat near the EOQ, especially to the right of the EOQ. In other words, even if the order quantity differs from the actual EOQ, the total cost will not increase much at all. This is particularly true for quantities larger than the real EOQ, because the total cost curve rises very slowly to the right of the EOQ. This is illustrated in figure 13.5. The total cost curve is relatively flat near the EOQ. Because the total cost curve is relatively flat around the EOQ, there can be some flexibility to modify the order quantity a bit from EOQ without incurring much of an increase in total cost. So we are done to the basic economic order quantity model, and now let's go to the second model, which is the economic production quantity model. The batch mode is widely used in production, even in assembly operations. Portions of the work are done in batches. The reason for this is that in certain instances, the capacity to produce a part exceeds the part's usage or demand rate. As long as production continues, inventory will continue to grow. In such instances, it makes sense to periodically produce such items in batches or lots instead of producing continually. The assumptions of the EPQ model are similar to those of the EOQ model, except that instead of orders received in a single delivery, units are received incrementally during production. So the assumptions are: first is only one product is involved. Second, annual demand is known. Third, the usage rate is constant. Fourth, usage occurs continually, but production occurs periodically. Fifth, the production rate is constant when production is occurring. Sixth, lead time is known and constant. Seventh, there are no quantity discounts. In figure 13.6 illustrates how inventory is affected by periodically producing a batch of a particular item. During the production phase of the cycle, inventory builds up at a rate equal to the difference between production and usage rates. For example, if the daily production rate is 20 units and the daily usage rate is 5 units, inventory will build up at the rate of 15 units per day. As long as production occurs, the inventory level will continue to build. When production ceases, the inventory level will begin to decrease. Hence, the inventory level will be maximum at the point where production ceases. Inventory will then decrease at the constant usage rate when the amount of inventory on hand is exhausted. Production is resumed and the cycle repeats itself. The economic run quantity is QP is equal to square root of 2ds over h square root to P over P minus U, where P is production or delivery rate and U is equal to usage rate. Note that P and U must be in the same units, like for example, both in units per day or units per week. The cycle time, or the time between setups of consecutive runs for the economic run size model, is a function of the run size and usage or demand rate. So the formula is cycle time is equal to QP over U. Similarly, the run time, or the production phase of the cycle, is a function of the run or lot size and the production rate. So the formula is runtime is equal to QP over P. And the maximum and average inventory levels are: maximum inventory is equal to QP over P times times P minus U, or QP minus quantity QP over P U, and average inventory is equal to maximum inventory over 2. The third model, which is the quantity of discount model, will be reported by the next reporter.
Hello everyone, I am Alexa Devero, and for the next topic I will be discussing about quantity discounts. So first, what is quantity discount? So a quantity discount is an incentive offered to a buyer that results in decreased cost per unit of goods or materials when purchased in greater number. So in simpler words, these are price reductions for larger orders offered to customers to induce them to buy in large quantities. An example for quantity discount is a retail store dealing in computer hardware imports an enterprise model solid state drive or SSD at a fixed price of 1,000 pesos per unit from their sole distributor of the SSD. On January 20, 2022, the store received an offer of 15% discount on orders of 300 or more units, provided further that the estimated sales for the year are 600 units. The cost incurred per order is 1,000 pesos, and the average holding cost per unit per annum is estimated to be 120 pesos per unit. The full price is likely to remain 1,000 pesos during the year. So given in the example in the previous slide, you will be now getting the solution for the economic order quantity. So this formula for this is the square root of 2 times the demand times the order cost divided by the holding cost per unit. So square root of 2 times 600 times 1,000 divided by 120 is equal to the economic order quantity is 100 units. So in discounted order quantity, we have 300 units. In order to calculate for annual order under economic order quantity, we have to divide demand and the EOQ. So it is 600 divided by 100 is equal to 6 orders. So in annual orders under DOQ, we have demand divided by DOQ is equal to 600 divided by 300 is equal to 2 orders. In order to calculate for average inventory under EOQ, we have EOQ divided by 2 is equal to 100 divided by 2 is equal to 50 units. In average inventory under DOQ, we have DOQ divided by 2 is equal to 300 divided by 2 is equal to 150 units. So in saving from reduction price, we have demand times full price times discount rate is equal to 600 times 1,000 times 0.15 is equal to 90,000. Saving from reduction in orders, we have orders reduced times order cost is equal to 6 minus 2 times 1,000 is equal to 4,000. In increase in holding cost, we have the increase in average inventory times holding cost per unit per annum is equal to 150 minus 50 times 120 is equal to 1,200. So in net effect on income, we have to add a saving from reduction in price and the saving reduction in orders and minus the increase in holding cost which we had earlier. So it is equal to 90,000 plus 4,000 minus 12,000 is equal to 82,000. So meaning since the net effect on income is positive, the store should avail the quantity discount. Next would be reorder point. So what is reorder point? So reorder point is a specific level at which your stock needs to be replenished. In other words, it tells you when to place an order so you won't run out of stock. So the significance of an order point is that if you're a business owner, knowing when to order more stock is important. If you order when you still have a lot of stock on hand, it will lead to extra stockpiling, which will increase your holding cost. If you order when you have zero stock on hand, you'll be unable to make sales for as long as it takes to receive the order. If you're a vendor, it takes to supply the items, the more sales you'll be losing. Setting a reorder point helps you optimize your inventory, replenish your stock of individual items at the same right time, and meet your market demand without going out of stock. An example for reorder point. Let us suppose that you are a retailer who sells water bottles and snack boxes. The two items are purchased from different vendors with different lead times. So the water bottle takes 1 day to get delivered, so lead time is equal to 1 day, and the snack boxes take 4 days, so the lead time would be 4 days. In a typical day, you sell 5 water bottles and 10 snack boxes. So you have to calculate. Without safety stock, your ROP with the vendor who delivers the water bottle should be reorder point is equal to 5 times 1 is equal to 5 bottles. So when you have 5 bottles left, that means you have 1 day of sales before you run out of stock. Since your lead time is also 1 day, the new stock should arrive just in time for you to continue selling without interruption. So, similarly, your ROP with the vendor who delivers the snack boxes should be ROP is equal to 4 times 10 is equal to 40 boxes. You should reorder when you have 40 boxes of stock left in your inventory, which is 4 days of stock given which your lead time is also 4 days. The new stock should arrive just in time for you to continue selling without interruption. A reorder point is very crucial for effective inventory management. It saves holding costs and prevents stock out, overstocking, and lost sales by ensuring that sufficient stock is always available in your inventory. Next would be how much to order, fixed order interval model. So the fixed order interval model is also known as FOI model. Is used when orders must be placed in fixed time intervals. It may be weekly, twice a month, and etc. So the timing of orders is set. The question is then into each order point is how much to order. Fixed interval ordering systems are widely used by retail businesses. If demand is variable, the order size will tend to vary from cycle to cycle. This is quite different from the EOQ and the ROP approach, in which the order size generally remains fixed from cycle to cycle while the length of the cycle varies. So the shorter if demand is above average, and the longer if the demand is below average. We have the reasons for using the fixed order interval model. So the fixed interval models gives you a real order scheduling capability for individual items with the possibility of grouping everything coming from the same supplier together on the same date. So in some cases, a supplier's policy might encourage orders at fixed intervals even when that is not the case. Grouping orders for items from the same supplier can produce savings in shipping costs. Furthermore, some of situations do not readily lead themselves to continuous monitoring of inventory levels. So many retail operations, example like drugstores, small grocery stores, fall into this category. So the alternative for them is to use fixed interval ordering, which requires only periodic checks of inventory levels. So the last thing that I would be discussing is determining the amount to order. So if both the demand rate and lead time are constant, the fixed interval model and the fixed quantity model function identically. The differences in the two models become apparent only when they examined under conditions of variability. So Like ROP model, the fixed interval model can have variations in demand only, in lead time only, or in both demand and lead time. However, for the sake of simplicity and because it is perhaps the most frequent encountered situation, the discussion here will be focused only in the variable demand and the constant lead time. So the optimal order quantity is also called the economic order quantity, and it's the most cost-effective amount of product to purchase at a given time. It is an important calculation because holding too much stock is expensive. Not only are tying up money so you could be using somewhere else, holding surplus stock may result in unnecessary storage and administrative financing insurance costs. So, in calculating your optimal order quantity, the formula you need to calculate is optimal order quantity is equal to the 2 times the annual usage in unit times the setup cost divided by the annual carrying cost per unit divided by the half of it. So I hope you all learned something from my report, and that would be all. Thank you.
Good day, everyone. I am here to report the single period model. My name is Mary France M. Macalbacol, and I am the reporter of this part. The single period model is used to handle ordering of perishables, fresh fruits, vegetables, seafoods, cut flowers, and items that have a limited useful life, like a newspaper, magazines, spare parts for specialized equipment. The period for spare parts is the life of equipment. Assume that the parts cannot be used for other equipment. The single period model is like a limited or one use only, like the newspaper. The content of the newspaper is for today's issue or today's news na so kas-ara gud siya magamit. And other example is the spare parts, like spare parts in motorcycle cannot be used in the car or other truck. A single period inventory model is a business scenario faced by companies that order seasonals or one-time item. This is only one chance to get the quantity right when ordering, as the product has no value after the time it is needed. The single period model is designed for products that share the following characteristics. First, they are sold at the regular price only during a single time period. Second is the demand for this product is highly variable but follows a known probability distribution. Third, or the last one, is the salvage value of this product is less than their original cost, so you lost money when they are sold for their salvage value. Two costs of single period: the shortage cost and the excess cost. Shortage costs may include a charge for loss of customer goodwill as well as the opportunity cost of loss. Generally, shortage cost is simply unrealized profit per unit. Shortage cost is like ang item or product is na short ka, so ang imong customer mo balhin na lang siya laing kung asa to yang asa to nga product. Shortage cost, the word shortage means kakapusan or kakulangan. Shortage costs are those costs incurred by an organization which has no inventory in stock. No stock. Shortage, wala ni stock. This cost includes the loss of business from the customer who go elsewhere to make purchases, the loss of the margin of a sale that were not completed, and overnight shipping costs to acquire goods for are not in stock. When demand exceeds the available inventory for an item, the demand and the customer goodwill may be lost. The associated cost is called shortage cost. Some writers estimate shortage costs as equal to the product contribution margin. The formula of shortage cost is shortage cost is equal to revenue per unit is equal to cost per unit. The next is excess cost. Excess cost pertains to item left over at the end of the period. In effect, excess cost in the word excess cost is excess na hinubra. Like, in a supermarket, in the end of the period, wala nila na sell ang ilang item, like canned goods, wala nila na sell na in the end of the period, so that is excess. In effect, excess cost is the difference between purchase cost and salvage cost. Purchase cost means the total cost for the item or service purchase includes stock, shipping costs, and other fees. Salvage value is the book value of an asset after all depreciation has been fully expensed. The salvage value of an asset is based on what the company expects to receive in exchange for selling or parting out the asset of the end of its useful life. Excess costs are the costs of providing special education and related service to students with disabilities over and above the average expenditure in a local education agency or LEA for an elementary or secondary student. The formula of excess cost is excess cost is equal to original cost per unit is equal to salvage value per unit. Continuous stocking level. Continuous stocking level is when the demand of good is uniform. Under this type of stocking, the level continuation is maintained with shortage and excess stock. The optimum quantity of stock is achieved when there is a balance between shortage and excess of demand. It is one of the type of single period model and inventory in stock that a business entity maintains too much demand and supply of goods. Service level. The service level is a probability that demand will not exceed the stocking level and computation of the service level in the types. The K to determine the optimal stocking level. The formula of service level is equal to shortage cost divided by the shortage cost per unit plus excess cost per unit. Like, for example, Sweet Ciders is delivering weekly to Cindy Ciders Bar. Demand varies uniformly between 300 liters and 500 liters per week. Cindy pays 20 cents per liter for the ciders and charges 80 cents per liter for it. Unsold ciders has no salvage value and cannot be carried over into the next week due to spoilage. Find the optimal stocking level and its stock out case for an quantity. First, we will find the excess cost. Excess cost is equal to cost per unit minus salvage value per unit. Cost per unit, the excess cost per unit is 20 cents per liter. So 20 cents per liter minus, there is no salvage value per unit, so 0. 20 cents minus 0 is equal to 20 cents per unit. Next, we'll find the shortage cost. The shortage cost is equal to revenue per unit minus cost per unit. The revenue per unit is 80 cents per liter. The cost per unit is 20 per unit. So 80 minus 20 cents is equal to 60 cents per unit. So the salvage service level formula is salvage level is equal to shortage cost divided by the shortage cost plus exceed cost is equal to 60 divided by 60 plus 20 is equal to 75 cents. Thus, the optimal stocking level must satisfy demand 75% of the time. For the uniform distribution, this will be at a point equal to the minimum demand plus 75% of the difference between maximum and minimum demand. Now is the optimal stocking level is equal to 30 liters plus 0.75% times the 5 liter minus 300 liter is equal to 45 liters. So 300 to 500 to 75% of it is 450. The stock out ratio is 1 minus 0.75 is equal to 0.25. Next is the discrete stocking level. Discrete stocking level is maintained when the stock demand is discontinuous. There are certain goods whose demand is not continuous. They are demanded irregularly. Goods like petrol, spare parts, and etc. are some of its kind. In the technique, service level commonly does not correspond with the possible level, means the optimal level may be between 6 and 7 units. In this case, the solution in the stock at next higher level is 7 units. The discrete stocking level is a type of single period model and used in the technique of calculating shortage cost and excess cost. Like for example, here is the spare parts usage for several large hydraulic presses is given. Shortage cost involves down expenditure and special cost of ordering. The average per unit shortage is $4,200. The value of spare cost is $800 each, and the salvage value of the unused part is 0. It is required to determine the optimal stocking level. Here is the spare use. The number of spare use 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and more. The relative frequency is 0.25 0.20, 0.40, 0.30, 0.10, 0.001. And cumulative frequency 0.20, 0.60, 0.90, and 1. Now, here's the solution. Shortage cost is equal to $4,200 and the excess cost is $800. To compute is service level. The short cost is 4,200 over the shortage cost $4,200 plus $800 is equal to $5,000. $4,200 divided by $500 is equal to zero point is equal to 0.84. Looking this value in the cumulative frequency column of the table, it lies between 0.60 and 0.90. Thus the feasible level will be at the next higher value. So when we in the table we look there, the cumulative frequency, the 0.20, 0.60, 0.90. So our service level is 0.84. So 0.84 is close to 0.90, and in the step we should follow to the next higher value, which is 0.90. So the number of spare parts, the optimal number of spare parts is 2. The optimal stacking level is 2. The next is the operation strategy. Operation strategy. Inventories often represent the sustainable investment. More important, improving inventory process can offer significant benefits in terms of cost reduction and customer satisfaction. Operation strategy is a total pattern of decision which shape the long-term capabilities of any types of operation and their contribution to the overall strategy. The 4 areas that has a potential in operational strategy is the record keeping, variation reduction, lean operation, supply chain management. Record keeping is important to have inventory records that are accurate and up to date so that inventory decisions are based on correct information. Yes, it is important to a company or any corporation or any businesses to have an inventory record to check if it is okay, or the inventory or anything that is on record. Record keeping is an act of keeping track of the history of a person or organization's activity, generally by creating and storing consistent formal records. Variation reduction. Lead time variation and forecast errors are two key factors that impact inventory management, and variation reduction in these areas can yield significant improvement in inventory management. It is a multi-part strategy to reduce product variation and make a product more robust or fit to use. The third is lean operation. Lean systems are demand-driven, which means the goods are pulled through the system to match demand instead of being pushed through without a direct link to demand. Our business strategy drives by the principles of doing more with less. It is a minimalist approach to run a business and improving day-to-day operation. In other words, lean operation is all about putting a little like efficiency into your workflows. The last is the supply chain management. Working more closely with suppliers to coordinate shipment, reduce lead times, and reduce supply chain inventories can reduce the size and frequency of stock out while lowering inventory carry costs. And it is centralized management of the flow of goods and services and includes all processes that transform raw materials into final products. And that's all. Thank you.